right. Good afternoon, you guys. How are you guys today? I like his energy. Can we have everybody have his energy really quick? I know it's a small group. There we go. There we go. Woohoo! So thank you guys so much for visiting us today. We have an awesome organization with us today. We have Working Dogs for Conservation. So they actually help us out by keeping our wildlife safe. And you guys are gonna learn how the dog, Barley here, how he uses his awesome nose so that he can help save our wildlife. So can we give a big round of applause for Kayla and Barley? Yes.
All right, thanks for coming on out, guys. So yeah, as she said, my name is Kayla and I work for an organization called Working Dogs for Conservation. So what we actually do is we take high energy rescue dogs like Mr. Barley here, and we teach them that, hey, we know that the ball is your favorite thing in the whole wide world, and if you find what we're looking for, we're gonna play with your ball. So what that looks like, it's very similar to, drug dogs or bomb dogs, search and rescue dogs. A lot of that is kind of the same basic principle. The difference is we're doing that to protect wildlife. So I'm going to tell you 3 different stories here to kind of illustrate the sort of work that Working Dogs for Conservation does and how we do that. So one is a really recent story. Barley and I, right before we got here to LA, we were in Arizona working on a black-footed ferret project. Do any of you guys know what black-footed ferrets are? No? No? No one? Okay. So they're North America's rarest mammal. We actually thought they were extinct at some point in the 80s. Like we thought they were literally all dead. And then someone's dog actually brought a dead one to their front porch. And the woman looked at it, or man, I'm actually not sure, and said, I don't know what this animal is. It's not a fox, it's not a coyote, it's not a prairie dog. And they contacted the local authorities, and the local authorities were like, oh my God, we thought these guys were extinct. And they actually went out and trapped, they found a population of 18 of them. And they trapped them, and they brought them into a captive breeding facility, and then they've been gradually reintroducing them. And the reason we want to do that is black-footed ferrets are an important part of the Western Western ecology. So they eat prairie dogs, and they live in prairie dog towns, and they're really important for helping keeping prairie dog numbers at an acceptable level. Because if you don't have any predators, the prairie dogs breed out of control, and it can cause other problems like overgrazing and whatnot. So the tough thing about black-footed ferrets is they live alone, they live underground, and they're only active at night. So that makes it really, really hard for people to figure out where they are and how those populations are doing, because most of our stuff relies on our eyes. We're not good at finding stuff with our eyes that's underground, or finding stuff with our eyes if it's active at night. So they're just incredibly difficult to study, but what we've actually been able to do is we've got a team of 35 dogs, and about 8 of those dogs are trained to find black-footed ferrets. So we were just out in Arizona, and we were spending about a month walking along the desert, asking the dogs to sniff every single hole that we saw, and if the dogs smelled a black-footed ferret down in the hole, they would either sit or lie down, depending on the dog, which tells us that, hey, they think they found one there. And then we can reward the dogs, and we're using that to get an idea of how the black-footed ferret population is doing, so that we know how these incredibly rare animals are doing out in the wild. So that's one of the things we do, is we help researchers study these really hard to find animals and these really rare animals. One of the other things that we do is we help protect areas from invasive species. Do you guys know what an invasive species is? Yeah? What is an invasive species? You don't want to be on the spot, that's okay. So an invasive species is an animal that comes from somewhere else that is really, really good at what it does, and they can breed out of control and then outcompete or kill the local animals. So that's a big problem. Usually it's our fault. Humans are kind of we're the main reason that invasive species exist, because we'll accidentally pick them up in Europe and then bring them to America, or vice versa. And one of the ones that Barley and I have worked on together is a species of mussel that's native to Ukraine called zebra mussels. And they're actually a huge problem here in California. But up in Montana and Wyoming and Idaho, which is where we do a lot of our work, they actually aren't up there yet. So what we do is we sniff, he sniffs, I don't, every single boat that's trying to either cross the state line or get out onto a boat launch, and he makes sure that that boat doesn't have any zebra mussels on it, because even one zebra mussel can produce up to 1 million babies. So if we even miss one, there's a really good chance that that lake is then going to be infected. And once they're in a body of water, there's not really anything we can do to get them out. They're just really tiny, and they're very, very resilient, which is awesome for them evolutionarily in Ukraine where they're native. But here, where we don't have any animals that eat them, it's a really big problem for us. So he's able to help do that. And we actually had the privilege of spending a month in Yellowstone, which is the world's first national park. It's America's crown jewel, and we got to help protect those waterways from invasive species, which is just so cool. And the third thing that our dogs get to help with is we help with wildlife crime. So we have dogs that are stationed in port cities around the world, as well as in different national parks in Africa, and the dogs are helping to sniff cars for contraband, and they will let us know if that car has guns and ammunition in it, because you're not allowed to have guns and ammo in Africa's national parks for the most part. And they'll let us know if there's ivory in the car. And then we can arrest the bad guys if that's what needs to happen, because they've got something they're not supposed to have. And again, dogs are really, really good at this. It takes humans up to 3 hours to search a car really thoroughly to make sure there's no hidden compartments or it's not tucked into the pocket of a jacket at the bottom of the suitcase. But the dogs, because scent moves, they can tell us, they can search a vehicle in about 3 minutes. So it's just way faster. So those are the 3 big things that we do. And all of the dogs we work with are rescue dogs. So Barley came from a shelter in Denver. He actually ended up losing his home because he was just so high energy and the family was going through a rough time, and they just couldn't keep him because he needs hours of exercise every day. I run marathons and he does every single training one with me, and I get back and I'm about ready to die, and he looks at me and says, "Is that it?" And that's one of the coolest things, in my opinion, about this work, is we're not just helping protect wildlife and all of these amazing places, but we're also doing it with these dogs that don't have a lot of other options. So some of our other dogs, by the time they were only 3 years old, they've been in 5 different homes because they love balls so much that if you're not throwing the ball, they bark. And they bark, and they bark, and they bark. And let me tell you, most neighbors don't like that. But we're able to help teach them, the rules of the game and how to use their noses and how to use their love of tennis balls for good. So what we're gonna do now is you guys are going to help me pick out where we're going to hide some ferret scent for Barley, and he's gonna do a little bit of a demo for you, and we're also going to hide some treats to see whether or not he's gonna pick the ferret scent or the treats, okay? So I'm gonna give him over so that he isn't peeking and he isn't cheating, and we're gonna pick where we're gonna put this black-footed ferret scent. Go on, then. Go on. All right, so where do you guys think that we should put some ferret scent? Where do you want it? You can just point. In here? In this one? Okay. We've got one that we'll put in here. Where do you want to put the other one? Unfortunately, no. He's not allowed in the tunnel because it's got to be cleaned for kids later. In the weird bag? Let's put it in the weird bag. It was actually in that pile of cones for our last demonstration, so I don't want him to think that it's always in there. All right, and then we have a bag of food. Do you guys want to leave it in here, or do you want to move it anywhere else? You want to put it in the crate? Okay, so yeah, we got a big bag of duck jerky. We'll put that in the dog crate. And so when Barley is searching, I want you guys to watch his tail and watch his nose. What you're gonna see is his tail is wagging, and when he gets closer and closer, you might, if you watch closely, you might see that his tail is wagging faster, and it either start wagging in a circle or a bit more side to side. When he's searching, his tail is often kind of wagging up like this, and when he gets closer, it starts wagging more level with his body and much more side to side. And those are the things that I get to watch for to see whether or not he's getting close so that I can help him out if he needs. And you might also see his nose. He might lick his nose as he gets closer, and that's to help keep all those sensors wet so that he can smell even better. And you might actually see him start closing his mouth, because he'll start out panting because he's excited, and when he starts getting closer, you'll see him close his mouth to help get all of the air going through his nose. Okay, so try to watch for all of that, and see if you can tell when he knows where it is. And it'll be really fast, so watch carefully. Okay. All right, so the last thing before he gets to search is I'm going to put on my training pack, which he knows means that we're about to go training. And this is his favorite game in the whole world, so he gets really excited. We actually don't have this pack has to live in on the top shelf of a closed closet at my house, otherwise he'll just kind of sit and try to get me to put it on for hours every day. And the same with his vest. His vest only gets to go on when he's working, otherwise he always thinks that he's supposed to be trying to find stuff, and sometimes I just want him to take a nap. All right, so the last thing is I'm going to tell him what he's looking for, and then we're going to get started. Okay, ferrets. He's fast. You are too fast. Good job, Barley. Good boy. Okay, drop it. Good boy. All the way. So most of our dogs really like fetch. Barley likes both fetch and tug of war. Because this is his paycheck, which means I don't have to share my money with him, I will play with him however he wants. If he wants to play tug of war, we play tug of war. If he wants to run in circles and chomp on the ball, he can run in circles and chomp on the ball. And we'll do this for a minute or two. We'll do it longer if it was harder. So if he had a really, really hard time finding it, we'll play more to make it really worth his time. And if it was really easy, like this one, then we won't play all that long, and then we'll go find more. Okay? Drop it. You're gonna break it like that. Let's go find more. Yes, good boy. Did you guys see that? How the air must have been moving a little bit that way because he was walking this way, and then all of a sudden he was like, whoa, it's definitely over here, and he was right. So what questions do you guys have for us? Yes, go ahead. How does he smell it so fast? Dogs have incredible noses. So Barley's nose is so sensitive that if you took an Olympic-sized swimming pool, which is just huge, and you put 1 teaspoon of sugar in it, Barley would be able to tell that there was sugar in that water. And I actually don't know the physics of why their noses are so good, but their noses are just, it's hard to even imagine how much better their noses are than ours. Yes? How long did it take to train Barley? Barley actually came to us with quite a bit of background in training, and I owned him for about 2 years before I got hired. So his training for working dogs was probably only about 4 weeks, but that's because he had a lot of baseline and other stuff. I would say total it was probably closer to a year. Barley, bring it here. Sorry, bud. Yes, go ahead. What shelter did he come from? Barley came from a shelter in Denver called the Denver Dumb Friends League shelter. That's the shelter I worked at the time. Come on, bring it back here. Any other questions, guys? Go ahead. Are certain dogs smarter than others? Depends on how you define what smart is. But yeah, there are certain dogs that are definitely a lot easier to train, and that's usually because they've been bred to work with us. So Barley is a border collie, and his great-grandparents were bred to listen to us, to work off-leash to control sheep. So they're really good at problem solving, and they're really good at understanding what humans want because that's what they needed to be able to do. Versus if you look at like a beagle, for example, it's not that beagles aren't smart, but they're bred to find the scent of something and follow it barking their heads off, and it's the human's job on a horse to keep up. So they're a little bit harder to train because they're not bred to communicate with us the same way as border collies. But border collies actually do generally top the lists for the smartest dogs. I might be a little bit biased, but I think that's probably right. Sometimes it feels like he's smarter than I am, or that he like read the training plan before we get started. It's a little bit weird sometimes. I grew up with Labradors, which are one of the other breeds that we work with a lot. So we will work with any breed with working dogs for conservation, but we do like dogs that are ball crazy. So we see a lot of German Shepherds, Labrador Retrievers, and Border Collies. And labs just don't have quite the same problem-solving skills as border collies, but they're much sweeter. Any other questions, guys? Drop it. All right, then I'm gonna walk Barley by. If you guys want to pet him on the butt or the back, you guys can do that. And then we'll let you guys go on to the rest of your day, okay?